Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a variety of registrations from a number of different countries, so it's great to see so many of you on the webinar today. And I'm excited that you're excited to help your math and engineering applicants apply to the University of Waterloo. My name is Meg McClellan, and I'm the Director of Undergrad Recruitment and International here in the Faculty of Mathematics. And I'm lucky enough to be moderating the session today, so I'm glad you can join us. I'm also lucky enough to be joined by two of my colleagues, Bill Bishop, who is the Director of Engineering Admissions here for the Faculty of Engineering. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Heather Shaw, who is our Undergrad Recruitment and Admissions Officer for the Faculty of Mathematics. So you'll meet those two in just 1 second. But before you get a chance to meet Bill and Heather, there we go. We just have a few housekeeping items that I'd like to go through as well. For those of you that might need or want closed captioning today, that's available by clicking the live transcript CC button at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. We also have a team of people sort of behind the scenes that are helping us today to answer questions in the Q&A box. So you can see the Q&A button on the left-hand side of your screen. If you do have questions, you can submit them there and we will answer those as quickly as we can. We've also listed our email address there, so enginfo@uwaterloo.ca or mathinfo. If you come up with questions after the session, that's how you can get in touch with our team. If we do have time at the end, we'll actually take sort of those frequently asked questions or the common questions, and myself, Bill, and Heather will address some of those verbally as well. So before we get too far into things, I wanted to acknowledge that we do live and work and study on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land that's promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And I do hope that throughout the presentation today, you take some time to learn and respect and acknowledge the traditional territory that you are currently situated on as well. We've put a link there. I would encourage you to visit the nativeland.ca to learn more about the land that you occupy. And before I pass it on to Bill and Heather, I do also want to highlight some of the staff who are supporting you and your students in your specific markets. So we've got a great team of central international recruiters who you can see on the screen there. Maybe some of you joining today know Karuna from India and other South Asian markets, Middle East as well, and Africa. We've got Shannon, we've got Akia, and we've got Brian centrally who are there to help and support you and your students. And we also have a team of international recruiters in the Faculty of Mathematics as well. So you can see me there. We also have Vicky Liu for China. We've got Pavak for India and South Asia as well. And we've got Heather Shaw, who I'm about to introduce to you, and she covers our Middle Eastern, Southeast Asia, and Africa markets. So the bottom line there is there's a huge team of people that are here to support you and your students throughout the application cycle. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to, I'm going to turn my camera off here, and I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Heather. Heather, take it away.
Thanks so much, Meg, and hello to everyone who's joining us today. I wanted to first kick off with a little bit of information about the University of Waterloo as a whole. Whether or not you're familiar with the University of Waterloo or you are learning for the first time, I wanted to highlight a couple of things about why we are so special and why you should have your students consider the university as their as one of their program search options. So the University of Waterloo is relatively young compared to some of its other university counterparts. We are just over 60 years old, but despite our youth, we have done very well in our rankings to develop students and create them into the talented full-time professionals that employers are looking for. We are ranked #1 in Canada for employer-student connections, meaning that the courses that they take and the programs that they're enrolled in, as well as participating in various opportunities at the university, including cooperative education, which is our job readiness program, our entrepreneurship culture, producing their own companies, or utilizing the skills to do that if they choose to do so, joining clubs and association, a variety of other opportunities. This is how we are preparing students for the working world. I've mentioned co-op a little bit already. 96% of those students who participate in co-op are able to find work within the first 6 months of their graduation, with many actually finding work well before that 6 months, some even finding employment before they've graduated. And that's because employers love our students. They know that they are great thinkers, they are challenging different ideas. And so we've done quite well in rankings to have our students set up for those full-time opportunities. You can see as well that we have a couple of other strong rankings as well within Canada. Internationally, we are also strongly recognized. We are ranked in the top 150 universities in the world according to QS World Rankings. And then within Canada itself, we also are ranked #1 for most innovative and most #1 for experiential learning. There are a couple of things that make the Faculty of Engineering and the Faculty of Math special, and that's why we are hosting together to talk about all these great opportunities for your students. We are the only Faculty of Mathematics in North America, which includes computer science, which is a branch of mathematics, and because of that, we have earned the title of the largest center for mathematics and computer science teaching and research. Within the world, math and engineering are both respectively ranked in the top 50, and for computer science, top 23. So if your students are coming to study with us, they are being set up for an internationally recognized degree with lots of great preparation to prepare them for the working world. If you're not familiar, the University of Waterloo is located in Canada. Canada is a very safe, diverse, and great place to study. At the University of Waterloo, we are trying to develop our students into great problem solvers. And we know that people from different parts of the world tackle problems in different ways. So because of this, we actively recruit students from different parts so that they can help to challenge those world problems and come to some great conclusions. You can see where the red dot is highlighted that this is where Waterloo is located. We are about an hour away from Toronto, which is where one of our international airports is located. Students will travel through Toronto. We typically will set up a van meet or a stop point where we welcome students from the airport and bring them to campus. So we have been doing this for a number of years to make our international students feel quite welcome. Waterloo is part of Canada's Silicon Valley. We do have a large number of startup companies that are part of Waterloo. We have over 1,000, and we have some very large tech companies that are with us as well. Although we are going to be talking about the Faculty of Math and Faculty of Engineering programs specifically in this session, I do want to highlight that if you have students who are interested in other areas, we do offer 6 faculties that include arts, engineering, environment, health, mathematics, and science. And within these different faculties, there are over 100 programs to choose from. So it's great that if students are interested in math and engineering, they can begin their search today. But I just want to point out that there are other programs for students that might find themselves interested in areas outside of the ones that we will mention today.
Thanks, Heather. So I'll speak to the programs that the Faculty of Engineering offers. We have, of course, 14 engineering programs ranging from architectural to systems design engineering. And we also offer a very unique program in architecture that's world-renowned. The programs that are in highest demand in this list are probably software engineering and biomedical engineering, which no doubt you've heard of. But it's important to realize that we have a range of engineering disciplines including civil engineering disciplines like environmental and geological, where we have some excellent opportunities, including co-op programs for our students. And of course, we have all of the traditional programs such as mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and so on. So a very wide range of engineering programs, all accredited by the Canadian Engineering Accreditation Body, and all co-op programs, 100% co-op.
Thanks, Bill. In our Faculty of Mathematics, we offer 23 undergraduate programs for students to study math. We are really looking for students who love mathematics, but also students who think logically through numbers, patterns, or puzzles. These are really the students that are going to be attracted to the types of programs that we offer and excel. We have a couple of different programs that are flexible and more structured depending on how students want to challenge mathematics. Our honors mathematics programs are majors that students don't need to choose until after their first year. And so if they know that they like math, but maybe don't know specifically what type of math they'd like to study at the university level, we do offer that general first year for them to develop their interests and then declare a major. We have math and business programs, which are structured so that students can earn a professional designation in things like accounting, actuary, charter financial analyst type of roles. And then we also offer computer science. And this is where students can study strictly computer science or computer science with another discipline. Our students generally go off to become developers, client specialists, analysts. There are a variety of different roles that they find after graduation. And the reality is that all industries need mathematic graduates. And so students that participate in any of these programs will be well set up for a great experience.
And one of the most common questions that we get from both applicants as well as counselors is what's the difference between computer science, software engineering, and computer engineering? It's important to recognize that computer science is the program that's traditionally associated with software development, and it's clearly the more desirable program for the vast majority of students. It's flexible in its course load. It has more availability of elective courses. And due to the nature of the program, it's one where you have a little bit more programming content because of the fact that it's not an accredited engineering program. It is, however, accredited by the computer science group. So it's quite an excellent program. It's our most attractive program in terms of highest number of applicants and the most difficult program to get into. It should be pointed out that it offers both a 4-year program and a 5-year program, the 4-year being the traditional program and the 5-year being the co-op program. If we look to software engineering and computer engineering, as you move into the engineering disciplines, you of course have to understand not only the discipline that you're within, but also the fundamentals of engineering design and analysis. And a result of that is that the course schedule tends to be a bit more rigid and a bit more fixed. In terms of outcomes, the students that take any of these programs could conceivably become software developers. It's important to note that as you move from computer science to computer engineering, you significantly move from focusing predominantly on software design to moving towards hardware design. So that's one of the key differences. There's also, of course, the difference in the degree that you're granted. You get the Bachelor of Computer Science. In computer science, you get the Bachelor of Software Engineering and Software Engineering, and the Bachelor of Applied Science and Computer Engineering. Overall, that probably doesn't make a difference to the outcomes in terms of what the students wind up doing after graduation. Most employers don't care about the exact letters behind the degree, but what does really matter is the experience that the students gain. So in computer science, you get a lot more of the software experience that students who really love programming are probably interested in. Software engineering and computer engineering would be more suited for students that really like to design solutions to problems. They're very focused on understanding how things work, not only at the software level, but also at the hardware level. And they're probably more interested in designing software to control other engineering systems. This is another way of kind of looking at the same question. Software engineering is really a blend between computer engineering and computer science. So it's kind of at the intersection of the two. The computer science, of course, is got a little bit more of the theoretical content, which can be very useful in practice as well, but it does focus a lot more on algorithms, proofs, and theory than, say, computer engineering or software engineering. You see a bit more teamwork and team projects in computer engineering and software engineering because engineers often work in teams. And of course, as you move towards computer engineering, you see a lot more of the hardware side of things where you have autonomous vehicles, chip design, robotics. That's not to say that a student taking computer science couldn't do those things. Certainly they could, but the computer engineering program naturally prepares you for those career paths, whereas computer science prepares you more towards developing software systems.
Thanks for that overview. It's fantastic. I will note that obviously Professor Bishop and I have shared a lot of information about our programs, and a lot of them is fairly general. If your students are looking to do a deeper dive into the programs that we've already discussed and shown so far, we have a couple of different websites that they can certainly go to do a little bit more research. Our uwaterloo.ca future website includes details about the programs that we offer, but also includes a lot more information about the application process, including how to apply, specific admission requirements that we will get into in just a moment for students, more details about how the co-op program works, as well as scholarships and tuition, and a little bit information on student life. There's also a great set of information and resources for international students applying. We know that the process can look quite different for them compared to Ontario students. And so our future website is a really great place for them to get a lot of that great information. But respectively as well, our faculties have our own websites. Our math website includes a deeper dive into each of our math programs, as well as some other information that we'll get into a little bit later. And engineering similarly would have a deeper dive into the programs as well. So keep in mind that although we're sharing this great information today, there is a lot of detailed information that can be accessed afterwards.
So now I'll talk a little bit about some of the required courses and the admission processes for both engineering and math. Engineering, of course, has 5 required courses: advanced functions, calculus and vectors, chemistry, physics, and English in the Ontario secondary school system or their equivalents elsewhere. We also require one other 4U or 4M course. Often applicants will ask, does it matter whether it's a 4U or a 4M? And the answer is either one will be fine. They're all treated equally. We do have a minimum final grade of 70% required in each of these courses, although it's extremely rare that we see applicants with grades anywhere near 70% for engineering. For software engineering, we have the additional requirement that you have to have prior programming experience, and that's largely in place partially because of the fact that we have such a deep applicant pool and we can require it, but partially due to the fact that the program assumes some programming experience and knowledge going in. So it's kind of important to have that. If we look to mathematics and computer science, the required courses are predominantly the math courses, advanced functions, calculus, and vectors. Students are required to take any grade 12 U English, one other 4U course, and then 2 other 4U or 4M courses. So a student that would qualify for engineering would certainly qualify for math or computer science. It may not be the case that if you meet the requirements for math and computer science, that you would necessarily have all the courses for engineering. Most often students struggle getting in the chemistry, for example, or the physics. In the American curriculum, we look for AP Calculus and AP Physics for engineering, algebra, chemistry, and grade 12 English, as well as one other grade 12 academic course. The minimum final grade is a bit higher for the American system at 75%. Again, we don't typically have American applicants that are at that level. They're usually well above the minimums. And the minimum average is 88% in the 6 required courses. And again, software engineering requires prior programming experience. For math and computer science, AP Calculus with a minimum final grade of 4, algebra, of course, being required as well, the 2 maths that you would expect, grade 12 English, and then one other grade 12 academic course. And the minimum overall grade 12 average is 90%, which is a little bit higher than engineering. And certainly a high bar to set, quite honestly, for students. So mathematics and computer science has enough applicants that they can justify that. We do not require ACTs or SATs, so that's important to realize as well. Okay. In the IB curriculum, we of course require mathematics, analysis, and approaches at the high level is recommended. Physics at the high level is recommended for engineering. Chemistry, English A, and one other HL or SL course. Minimum final grades of 4 are required in each of these, and we expect applicants to have a total of 32 overall. And that excludes the diploma points. In math and computer science, HL, mathematics, analysis, and approaches with a minimum of 6. HL or SL English A is required, and again, a total of 32. So 6 total IB courses, at least 3 must be at the high level, which is largely compatible with what we see for engineering as well. Okay, and in the Indian curriculum, we look for the standard 12 courses, math, physics, chemistry, and English, and one other standard 12 course, so 5 courses overall, and a minimum final grade of 70% in each of them for the engineering side. On math and computer science, again, standard 12 mathematics. It's important to note that applied mathematics is not accepted, and a minimum final grade of 90% is required. Standard 12 English, of course, and one other standard 12 course with a minimum grade of, I believe it's 90. All standard 12 courses have to have a minimum final grade of 80%, except for those previously noted. Now, for engineering, we have admission probabilities as a way of demonstrating what the likelihood of admittance is to a program. We do not have a hard cutoff. We individually look at all applicants for admission, and successful applicants typically have an admission average in the high 80s to mid 90s. It really depends upon the engineering program that they're applying to. Obviously, if it's software engineering or biomedical engineering, it's usually mid 90s or higher. The admission information form is the way that applicants can tell us more about themselves and the types of activities they've been involved with. This often plays a critical role in the selection of applicants. For engineering, we also have online interviews, which are optional, but a very strong asset to the application package. It's important to note the no admission offer guarantees an offer of admission. And I know last year, at least one student with a 99 average was not granted admission to software engineering. So it does happen. Here we see the admission probabilities for engineering. This is the way that we like to kind of give an idea of what the likelihood is of receiving an offer of admission. These are actually calculated based on last year's results. So these are the exact percentages that we saw last year. We have at the top tier biomedical and software engineering. These programs, you typically see students with 97 averages and higher. Even if you're at a 95 average, your probability of acceptance is really only 33%, because we have so many applicants to these programs and they're so competitive to get into. Our middle tier consists of computer engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical, mechatronics, and systems design. And students with a 95 average will generally be admitted to these programs. Students in the 90 to 94 range have some chance of being admitted, about a 1 in 4 chance. And we will see the odd student that gets admitted with an average somewhere in the high 80s. Typically, that's because they have outstanding extracurricular activities, or maybe they've distinguished themselves in some other way. Our bottom tier, if you will, for programs which are still outstanding programs for engineering, consists of architectural, which is relatively new, and that's why it's in the bottom tier at this point. Chemical engineering, civil engineering, environmental, geological, management, nanotechnology. These are smaller programs in some cases. They're also a little less well known in terms of our brand at the University of Waterloo, but still excellent programs. Certainly, our nanotechnology program is really one of a kind. The architectural engineering program is relatively unique to our school and definitely worth looking at. And we do have a really strong civil engineering department that offers some excellent programs in civil, environmental, and geological. These programs here, we find that applicants with a high IEDs average will have an excellent chance of getting into. The number kind of hides the reality. Last year, we admitted 14% of the applicants in that 85 to 89% range, but often that's because of the fact that the students had abandoned the application process partway through the system. Most of the students with a mid to high 80s average were accepted to these programs if they successfully completed their application package. And just to give you an idea of how many applicants we have for engineering, about 14,000 overall. About 4,000 of those will be given an offer of admission. About 2,000 accept the offer of admission, and we expect to see about 1,800 students register for classes in the fall.
So Professor Bishop has done a great job of explaining all the different curriculums and the grade requirements and courses that we need. We've touched a little bit on the admissions information form, and I want to take an opportunity to describe that in a little bit of further detail as to what it is and how we use it. The admissions information form is our way to learn more about students than we would otherwise know from seeing their grades alone. Because we do have competitive programs for both math and engineering, we aren't able to really tell students apart from just seeing their grades. And we'll use the admissions information form to get some more detailed information about the students that are applying so that we can make sure that we are choosing those that are the best and the brightest of their class. The admissions information form is a requirement. Students do need to submit it in order to be considered for admissions. In some cases, which I'll get into a little bit further, it is also used for entrance scholarships. So please make sure when you're supporting students in their application process that you are highlighting that this is something that they do need to complete. The admissions information form is where students can tell us about all their extracurricular activities and enrichment courses if they're part of IB or AP type of curriculums. Extracurricular activities can range. We're not looking for anything specific. It could include things like sports or playing a musical instrument. It could be tutoring a family member or a classmate. It could be developing an app. It's very broad for the information that we're looking for. And we, in fact, don't want to see the same information from each student because we want it to be unique to their experience. There's opportunity to include awards and achievements and any participation in school activities that are developing their professional skills. The AIF is the opportunity as well, specifically for our Faculty of Engineering, for students to indicate alternate engineering programs that they would like to be considered for. Because our engineering programs are incredibly specialized, starting in year one, we only allow students to apply to one engineering program. And then the AIF is their opportunity to include their second and third choice if they're not admitted into the first program that they would like to be considered for. The Faculty of Math allows students to apply to multiple programs, and we in fact recommend that students apply to every math program that they would like to be considered for. It is important to note that students can only apply to 3 programs at the University of Waterloo. So it's important that they do their research and figure out which programs are of best interest to them. With the admissions information form, we recognize that students, particularly this year applying as well as last year, have been in the pandemic, and so the traditional extracurricular activities have not been happening. We are aware. We still want to see what students have been doing during the time that they've been potentially studying from home and working from home, because there's still value in learning how they're spending their time outside of their classes. And I will note that the admissions information form, the details that are included do not need to relate to the programs that students are applying to. Although students might think they need to be an expert in computer science, if they're applying to computer science, they don't need to have any of that prior experience or developing an app or learning how to program a robot if they're applying to mechatronics. We really just want to know what students are doing outside of their class studies.
Now, one thing that's relatively new is that the Faculty of Engineering has students do an online video interview. This is optional but highly recommended. The reason is that we use the interview to identify students that may be falling through the cracks that are exceptional applicants. The interview is optional for admission consideration, but required for some scholarships. So I do strongly encourage students to complete it. And what we do is we add the interview score directly to the admission score. So completing the interview is better than not attempting it, for sure. It's definitely something to do. The interview basically models what would happen in a co-op interview. Applicants are asked 2 questions, and the questions generally examine why students want to study engineering and why they're a good fit for the program they've applied to join. For each question, applicants are given the question and given some time to prepare, and then they're asked to compose and record a video response. And we'll have an upcoming session where we talk a little bit more about the online video interview in our admission tips and tricks series that we'll talk about towards the end of this presentation.
If English is not the primary language of instruction for students that are looking to apply to Waterloo, studying in the English language program for the past 4 years consistently of high school, they will need to provide one of the approved English language requirement tests that is listed on our screen. Each of these tests will have a variety of ranges as far as the overall writing and speaking. The one that I'd like to highlight that's different is IELTS. If students are applying to our Faculty of Mathematics, they do have some higher requirements compared to the other programs in the requirements that they need for the test. So just be mindful of that. If students are excelling in their academics and they're able to meet our requirements for admissions, but their English language requirements fall just below what is listed here, it is possible for students to receive an alternate offer to our Bridge to Academic Success in English, or BASE. All of our programs at Waterloo offer BASE as an alternative for students. The important part to note is students cannot directly apply to this program. It is something that we will consider students for. So if they are not meeting our English language requirements, it is possible that they still will receive admissions to Waterloo after completing a foundational year for English. But ultimately, we do want students to achieve these minimums to be set up for success with their program, as well as co-op opportunities going forward. For tuition and scholarships, I know we had a question that came into the chat already about this. Tuition is very specific to the faculty or set of programs that students are interested in studying. So we can't say specifically this is exactly what a student will pay for their academics. However, once students do a little bit of research to figure out the programs that they would like to be enrolled in and considered for, they can see exactly what their tuition costs will be. As far as planning is concerned, with having a budget set up for those full set of costs, students should consider the cost of tuition, but also residents, whether they're planning to live on campus or in some student housing off campus, the cost of food or a meal plan if they're living on campus, any personal expenses like laundry or transportation, entertainment, as well as books and supplies. We do, as we've mentioned, offer co-op that allows students to earn up to 2 years of work experience and receive some great co-op earnings to help offset that tuition cost. In addition, we also offer scholarships to help offset that tuition. Most of our scholarships are based on overall averages, and they're automatically considered when students apply. The majority of these are our President's Merit Scholarship. There are also some other scholarships that are higher valued, like our $10,000 International Student Entrance Scholarship, which is based on grades, but also requires some additional information. So it's important that students take a look at our financing page to see which scholarships are automatically considered versus ones that require a separate application, and be mindful of those deadlines. Our Faculty of Mathematics offers additional scholarships on top of the ones that are listed that are ranked a little bit of a higher value. These are based on either a separate application, and eligibility requirements will change for those national and global scholarships that are higher valued, or they're based on our math contests. The Faculty of Mathematics has 2 different contests that it hosts each year. The one is the Canadian Senior Mathematics Contest, which will actually be written in November, as well as the Euclid Mathematics Contest, which is written in April. Students need to participate in these contests, as we will use the results to determine if they're eligible to receive math entrance scholarships. I will note that these contests are not required for admissions. We do use them for scholarship decisions. Students do need to participate in their grade 12 year for us to use the results for admissions or for scholarship consideration. And our cemc.uwaterloo.ca website, which is highlighted on our screen, is where they can get some great past contest problems in order to practice to participate in these contests. If students want to participate between grade 9 or grade 11, they absolutely can. We just consider that preparation for grade 12, and we do recommend that they participate to get some of that practice in. The high schools do need to register for students to participate, so please be mindful if you've not heard of these contests to consider enrolling for your students to participate or have a conversation with your math teacher, because it is quite possible that they are familiar. We have a ton of different domestic and international students that rate throughout the year. I will note, even though that I've said it is not used for admissions, we highly recommend that students participate in the contest, not only for scholarships, but also because if students are on the borderline of receiving an offer or not receiving an offer, a strong score could help their application. If a student does not rate the contest or has a negative score, it will not prevent their chances of receiving admissions if they are academically inclined to receive that offer. And although it's not a requirement for engineering, we do see a number of those students participating in these scholarships because they are also great problem solvers and logical thinkers.
So now I'll talk a little bit about the admissions process and the timelines for this next admission cycle. Applications are currently open. In fact, we've already had quite a few number of students apply. The application deadline is February 1st, 2022 for fall 2022 admissions. Students apply through the Ontario University's Application Centre, what we often refer to as UAC. The confirmation of application comes about 5 to 10 days after a student applies to UAC. So we do request that applicants be patient while we wait for the data to process. And then you'll receive a confirmation from the University of Waterloo that your application's been received. The confirmation email includes next steps. One step is setting up an account in Waterloo Quest, which is our student portal. And this is where students will complete their admission information form. They'll have the opportunity to submit supporting documents, which can be transcripts in some cases, English language documents in other cases, and any other information that's required. And of course, there's the admission information form that needs to be completed. And there are sections that are specific to engineering and math for the admission information form. So it's important that students complete the sections that are applicable to the programs that they're applying to. All supporting documentation in the AIF must be submitted no later than February 18th, 2022. That gives a little bit of time after the application deadline for applications to be processed by the university and for us to invite students to set up their accounts on Quest. But certainly we encourage students to complete the supporting documentation in AIF as early as they possibly can. There's 2 admission rounds for the Faculty of Engineering programs. We have an early round the last week in March, where the about 50% of our offers will be made in the March round, and then about 50% of our offers go out the first week in May for the final round. We do occasionally do admission decisions outside of these times on a case-by-case basis. Most often this occurs when a student has a financial commitment required at another university that they've applied to, and they need to have an offer in hand to make a decision as to how they want to proceed. The Faculty of Mathematics, on the other hand, is a little bit less likely to make offers in March, although I believe they do make some offers in March. Most of their offers are made in mid-May after the competition results have been finalized, and they have, of course, access to more final grades at that point. So a number of hot topics that people often ask us about. One thing is in engineering, students that have done an English as a second language course in the previous 2 years will be requested prior to their application being considered to submit an English language proficiency test. We will prompt students when they're in this situation, but it's important to note that if a student is studying at your school and they've taken English as a second language course within the past 2 years, that will be requested. Transferring programs, it's important to realize that our direct entry programs make transfers difficult, and mathematics has the problem that the programs are extremely competitive for entry, so it's sometimes difficult to transfer around as well. So it's very important to make sure that students do their diligence when applying to programs. And one question that we often get asked is, does it matter how students rank our programs on UAC? And the answer is no, it doesn't impact the admission decision. Another hot topic is the discussion of repeated online summer school courses. In engineering, repeating a required course only makes sense if the student currently does not have a grade above 70%, so they would be ineligible for admission. The reason why I say that is that if we see a student with a repeated grade, we will assign a 5% penalty to their admission average, which is equivalent to dropping the grade below 70%. So it generally doesn't make sense to repeat courses to apply to Waterloo Engineering. Now, at other engineering schools, that may not be the case, but at Waterloo, we found that students that repeat courses are just generally not very successful. Students taking online courses, of course, in this pandemic, we can't penalize them for that. Clearly, there's no penalties assigned this year. But we do some adjustments for summer school courses because we find that not only are summer school courses often a little bit easier, but also it allows students to spread out their workload, which makes courses more manageable and easier to obtain high grades in. In math and computer science, repeating a required course or taking a course outside of regular day school could jeopardize an applicant's chances of being admitted to the Faculty of Math. For this reason, students are encouraged to take all of their courses in regular day school and do well in their first attempt. So it's very important that students realize that we're looking for students who on their first attempt do extremely well in their courses.
Because we've shared a lot of information today, I just want to highlight again that there are a variety of ways for you to access these resources for our future student sites, as well as our engineering website and our mathematics website. There's a lot of great resources here for counselors to support students, but also students themselves to go in to read about all the different programs and admissions and student life opportunities that we offer. They can download any of our brochures to do a tangible look through the different information pieces that we offer. We also have a number of webinars that I'll highlight in just a moment that are coming up for students to participate in. Virtual campus tours are available and lots of other great resources. Specifically for international students, there are a number of different supports to help them in the transition to Waterloo, whether they're in the process of applying or have received an offer. We have a large peer community because 30% of our students are international who study with us on campus. We also have access to immigration consultants. It is required that students talk with a licensed immigration consultant if they want to discuss work and study permits. Unfortunately, people like myself aren't able to discuss those conversations. And so we do offer these services to students once they have an offer and are looking for more details on that application. We offer lots of great opportunities for students once they have made that transition of receiving an offer and becoming one of our students by participating in orientation week, airport pickups, and we have a large list of COVID-19 travel and quarantine checklist requirements for them to be mindful of. And as I mentioned, we have a couple of different webinars that are coming up. The ones highlighted in pink relate to our faculty, or sorry, the ones highlighted in purple relate to our Faculty of Engineering. The ones highlighted in pink relate to our Faculty of Mathematics. They include admissions tips and tricks, but also include math problem solving. So please make sure to share these with your students if they're not already familiar.
Okay. Thank you, Heather and Bill. That concludes the formal part of our presentation today. Again, Heather and Bill, that was very thoughtful, and I think you shared a lot of great information with our counselors on the call today. Counselors, I hope you found the information valuable and you're able to pass along with your students. We do have some time. We've got about 15 minutes to actually go through maybe some frequently asked questions. So what I'm going to do here, Heather and Bill, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna open up our sort of frequently asked question document here. Okay. Bill, maybe I'll direct this question at you. How does the Waterloo Engineering and Math admissions timeline compare to other universities?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, one of the key differences is that we do not do continuous admission. I know a lot of other universities do continuous admission. So students may receive offers earlier if they're applying to other schools, including some very excellent schools in Canada. The reason why we do not do continuous processes is because of the fact that we want to be able to assess students when we have consistent grades for them. So it's very easy to assess them all in May. It'd be ideal, actually, in some sense, if we did all of the admissions in May, although we realize that for applicants, that's obviously terrible. So, you know, we've come up with the early round of admissions for the top students, and clearly we try to help them out a little bit earlier. But generally speaking, that's one of the key differences.
Thank you, Bill. I know we get that question a lot from students. As I've applied to you all, when am I going to hear my decision, especially for math and computer science? Heather, maybe I'll ask this one of you. How long does it take most students to write the AIF, and what sort of unique information do they include? And I know you touched a little bit on that in the presentation.
I mean, some students could get it done in a day, some could get it done in a couple of weeks. The application deadline for students to apply is February 1st, and then the admissions information form is due February 18th. So we do give students a little bit of a grace period to complete that. We would just say, don't rush through it, because this is your opportunity to brag about yourself. So we'd recommend open a Word document, write some things down, get your parents to take a look at it. Your parents do a great job of bragging about you, and so it's really good to get their insights on things that you've done in high school that maybe you've forgotten. But don't wait on it too long that you forget to submit, because your application really is not complete until the admissions information form is submitted. So although we do give a little bit of time, we'd say try to submit it within the first 2 weeks of getting it, and maybe even a little bit sooner. But again, don't rush through it, because this is really your way to tell us about yourself that we wouldn't know unless you provided that content.
Thank you, Heather. That's helpful. I'm just going to switch gears a bit here with this question. We got a question that came in. Does Waterloo offer any full tuition scholarships, so full scholarships for international students for math or engineering? And unfortunately, we don't. So if not, what are some of the most generous scholarships that are available? If one of you wouldn't mind speaking to that.
On the whole, probably the most generous one would be our $10,000 international applicant one. If students are applying to one of our faculty and math programs that includes computer science, then our global and national scholarships would be that $12,000 to $25,000 range. Eligibility requirements do change, so it's important to take a look at the information that needs to be submitted for those. As well, some of it is very specific to country or demographics. And so it's important to take a look at those eligibility requirements as well to see if students are eligible to apply. It is also important to note that our $10,000 international scholarship might have a different deadline than the Faculty of Math ones, which are traditionally in February. So do the research early to make sure that you're not missing those deadlines to be considered.
And Heather, do you want to just talk a little bit about the scholarship application for the Faculty of Math ones as well? Or just remind people of the deadline?
Yeah, absolutely. So just as a reminder, the Faculty of Mathematics has a variety of different ranges for the value that students could receive for a scholarship to offset their tuition. Our application-based scholarships are due, I believe, February 25th. If it's not this year specifically that date, it will be around that date of when applications need to be received. The information that is used to determine those scholarships is generally based on grades, admissions information form, and then some other supplementary information. So it's important that students take a look at those eligibility requirements to make sure they're not missing anything. To be considered for a math entrance scholarship, students need to participate in one or both of our math contests. That's either the Canadian Senior the Canadian Senior Math Competition, or a CSMC, or the Euclid contest. The Canadian Senior Math Competition, if schools haven't registered already, unfortunately, our registration deadlines have passed, as that's being written in November. However, students can write the Euclid. The deadline will be March in order to write in April. The results of either both or one of these contests is how we determine those entrance scholarships. If students are only interested in the larger valued ones, the national and global, the math contests aren't required for that, but we still highly recommend that students write the contest, because if for whatever reason they're not eligible, they still have that opportunity to potentially be considered for those entrance scholarships.
Thank you, Heather. Bill, do you have anything to add there? I think she's summed that up pretty well, unless you want to chime in.
Yeah, I think she did a great job of summarizing it. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of high dollar scholarships for engineering.
Yeah, Bill, I'll maybe ask you this question. A question came in. When are students notified of the scholarship that they've been awarded during the admissions process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if a student gets admitted early, they would know their grid scholarship, or at least their approximate grid scholarship. It can go up actually in some cases if their average goes up, but they wouldn't know about named entrance scholarships. So a named entrance scholarship would be a scholarship that's given out for a particular reason, where a donor has attached their name to the scholarship. Those are typically given out in the final round of admissions. So what often happens is that the top students get admission offers in March, but they don't actually get scholarship offers until May. So students often need to wait till May anyways to find out how much money they'll actually receive.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And the same happens in the Faculty of Math as well. Bill, I think this is a good question for you. How do extracurricular activities play a role with admissions overall? And I think a way of reframing that question is, how important is the AIF and how important are academics, right? I think that's what the counselor might.
Yeah, so I guess the easier way to think about it is that the grades qualify you for admission. You have to have a certain level of minimum grades to be considered. And then the AIF is often the distinguishing factor that determines whether you get admitted. It clearly plays a very significant role in highly competitive programs. So I would imagine it plays a very strong role in computer science. It certainly plays a very strong role in software engineering and biomedical engineering. There are, of course, some less competitive programs within engineering and math, and those programs, it probably plays a lesser role. It is important to realize, of course, that when we evaluate the AIF, what we're often doing is evaluating how much time is spent on other activities outside of schooling. It's not so much what the activity is, but rather what is the time commitment, and if there are any soft skills gained, what are those skills that have been gained? So, something as simple as working at McDonald's or having a paper route, might count as much as coming second place in a competition in the province in some cases. It really depends upon, you know, the amount of time and effort that's put in, and kind of what does the applicant get from the experience. So that's really important to understand. I think sometimes applicants, especially the less confident ones, will be hesitant to put things on their AIF because they think they don't matter. Like, why would anybody care if I play, you know, recreational hockey, or why would somebody care if I can play a musical instrument? But the reality is those things take time commitment, and we do factor that in.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great answer. And really, we want to know, will the student be a good member of our community here at Waterloo, right? And all of those extracurricular activities will sort of help us see the student behind the transcript. What else do we have here? Bill, I think I'll stick with you again with this question, because I do think it's an important one. My time speaking with students and counselors, because our engineering programs are direct entry and we don't have that general first year, how can students determine which program is a right fit for them? And if you maybe want to give some advice there.
Yeah, so I mean, probably the best piece of advice is to speak to several students who are in the program and ask them what they like about the program, but also what they dislike about the program. I think it's important to have an honest conversation. The fact is, you won't like everything about the program that you're studying. The same way that an employee doesn't like everything about the job that they do. So you need to know that not only will you enjoy certain aspects of it, but when you come across those things that you don't like to do, how much of that is involved in the program? And, you know, will it be enough that overall you don't like the experience? I think that for the vast majority of our students, they're quite happy. I mean, if you look at a lot of the online media, it's important to look at it with the correct lens. If you look to social websites, for example, students that are clearly disgruntled or unhappy are more likely to post than those that are ecstatic. So I think that's important to understand. And I do think it's important to get more than one opinion as well. I wouldn't just go by a single individual. Certainly, I wouldn't go simply by my opinion or Heather's opinion. You know, I mean, we're somewhat biased, obviously. We like the programs, but definitely you want to talk to a variety of people, find out what they're doing, find out what they like, find out if they do it again. I think that's an important question to ask as well. And I think at the end of the day, the University of Waterloo, both its math and engineering programs, will get a pretty positive review, because the fact is our students have been highly successful after graduation, and certainly there's a lot of happy alumni out there.
Thanks, Bill. That's a great answer. I believe I saw Daniela post a few tools in the chat as well that you can share with your students on how we can help as staff and faculty to help guide students into the program that's best fit for them. I've got 2 minutes on my clock here. So Heather, I'm hoping that you can take this one quickly. This is a question about contests, and the math contest seems to be a hot topic this year in all the events that we've been doing. So Heather, I was just hoping there was a few questions. Can students retake the math contests to get a better score was one of the questions. And what are the type of things that we can do if our school is unable to register for the contests? And I think what we're getting at there is reiterating that it's not a mandatory piece of the application.
Correct. Yeah, so it is not required for admissions. That's important. It is used for scholarships. So students are finding that their schools are not participating and registering on their behalf. There is a possibility of reaching out to our Center for Education, Math and Computing, or CEMC group to see if there is a school willing to accept you to write, or that there's a central writing center. So do ask. There are some circumstances where we're not able to set students up, and that's the unfortunate reality of it. But we do try as best as possible to get you to write if you would like. If you're asking about retaking it, you've written in grade 9 and you want to take it again in grade 11, 12, grade 10, 11, 12, absolutely. You can write as many times as you want in your high school years. If you're wanting to retake it in grade 12, you won't be able to. Really, the purpose of it is we want to see your math ability in that first attempt, just like the rest of our courses. We want to see how you do the first time around. So if it's not a great score, it won't hurt your chances of admissions. It may not work out to get a scholarship, but we do want to see how you do in that first attempt.
I apologize there, Heather, you cut out. So I'm assuming you answered the question, but I think my Wi-Fi dropped for a second or two. So I apologize. Actually, I know we're at time. It's 10 a.m. I will say, in this last sort of 30 to 60 seconds, any sort of final thoughts or parting thoughts or tips or advice for the counselors on the call this morning, so that we can help their students.
Well, one tip is know that you can always reach out to us if you have a specific question. Certainly, we're happy to answer guidance counselor questions, and if we can't answer them directly, we'll pass you on to somebody who can. So you can always get your question answered at the University of Waterloo. And we're trying to make sure that we can do the same for applicants as well. Obviously, with as many applicants as we have, sometimes it's a little bit slow to respond, but definitely we do try to do our best to answer applicant questions. So feel free to reach out. EngInfo and MathInfo are two great email addresses to contact. Those are usually the first points of contact.
Yeah, that's a great response, Bill. That's exactly what I was hoping for. We're here to help. We have a team of, I think, 10 on the call today trying to help. And I know for counselors, there's a lot of universities, a lot of programs, and a lot of different admission requirements that you have to guide your students with. So feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to help you and your students. So we will leave it there. I apologize for going 2 minutes over, but Bill and Heather, I'd like to thank you for sharing an informative presentation today. And for the counselors on the call, thank you for joining us. And we all hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.